They are hurting. Inflation is gutting them like a fish. This inflation, like all inflation, is man-made. And that man's name is President Joe Biden. President Biden has proven to be an inflation machine.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that's affecting us all: inflation. Recently, Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana had some strong words for President Biden, blaming him for the skyrocketing costs hitting everyday people hard. In his speech, he called inflation a man-made disaster, saying it's gutting people like a fish. Stick around because this one's going to get real. Let's start with what's going on in Louisiana. Senator Kennedy described the impact of inflation on families in his home state. He talked about families now facing an extra $900 a month just to keep up with rising costs. That's a huge chunk of change for families living on a median household income of $58,000 a year. And remember, that's for families where both parents are working, likely supporting kids, paying off cars, and trying to make ends meet. Now imagine needing to come up with an extra $11,000 every year just to buy the same things you used to. This is the reality for many Louisianans, and Senator Kennedy wants everyone to understand that it's not just a statistic, it's a real burden.
And I'm going to talk just for a few minutes this evening about my people in Louisiana. They are hurting. Inflation is gutting them like a fish. This inflation, like all inflation, is man-made. And that man's name is President Joe Biden. President Biden has proven to be an inflation machine. He has spent trillions and trillions of dollars that we do not have. He has injected so much money into this economy that we are practically drowning in liquidity. And unless you were in the quad playing Frisbee during Econ 101, you know that inevitably that is going to cause inflation. And indeed it did. Now, I realize there is a yawning disconnect between what President Biden says and what my people in Louisiana are experiencing. There is. President Biden says that the economy is just fine. He says the economy is just wonderful. And I'll tell you what my people say. My people say, with respect, Mr. President, you need to put down the bong. Because in our state, we are paying more to live worse. And we're not going to be able to retire because of you, Mr. President, until 4 years after we're dead. Louisiana is not a wealthy state, Mr. President. Our median household income is about $58,000. That's mom and dad both working, 2 children. $58,000. It's about $4,800 a month. President Biden's inflation is costing my people an extra $900 a month. That's not a year. $900 a month. $11,000 a year. My average family's making, once again, $58,000 a year. They've got to find all of a sudden an extra $11,000 a year. Since President Biden has been president, his inflation has caused the average family in Louisiana an extra $22,000. You don't have to take my word for it. You can see this chart. You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to see that the direction is up. And these extra costs were caused by inflation. The prices of consumer goods in my state, on average, are up 20% since President Biden took office. Some are up a lot more, some are up a little less, but the average is 20%. Credit card debt is up 46%. The average credit card balance in Louisiana is now $5,800. When you're making $58,000 a year for a family of four, $5,800 is a lot. Delinquent credit card debt is up 11%, the highest in 12 years. We have had a record number of people who have had to take early withdrawals from their retirement accounts, Mr. President.
Senator Kennedy's fiery address on the Senate floor expressed deep frustration with what he views as the detrimental impact of President Biden's economic policies, especially inflation. His argument is centered on the claim that inflation has become a major economic strain for residents in states like Louisiana. According to Kennedy, his constituents are experiencing significant cost increases across essential goods and services from food and fuel to housing. For a household making approximately $58,000 annually, an increase of $800 to $900 per month in living costs due to inflation, as Kennedy highlights, is highly impactful. Kennedy's speech also touches on a key distinction between inflation reduction and deflation. He argues that while inflation rates may appear to slow, prices continue to remain high, resulting in what economists call disinflation instead of an actual decrease in the cost of goods. This, he asserts, leaves consumers, especially lower and middle-income families, stuck with permanently higher costs that reduce their overall purchasing power. He critiques what he sees as the administration's continued spending policies, which he argues fuel inflation, alongside broader economic policies branded as Bidenomics that he believes disproportionately harm average Americans. The implication of this position, often shared by other conservatives, is a call for fiscal restraint and a pivot away from expansive federal spending. While Kennedy's criticisms resonate with those who attribute inflation to government policies, his speech has also drawn attention to differing views on inflation causes and control. Economists and policymakers are split. Some believe external factors such as supply chain issues and global disruptions also play roles, complicating the attribution of inflation solely to policy decisions. The overall effectiveness and impact of Kennedy's critique will continue to be debated, particularly as inflation, interest rates, and public sentiment influence the upcoming elections and policy discussions. All right, everyone, that's a wrap on today's breakdown of Senator Kennedy's heated speech on inflation. No matter where you live, rising costs are a serious issue. And if you're feeling the effects, know you're not alone. Millions across the country are in the same boat. Thanks for tuning in, and if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated. Let me know in the comments what's been the biggest hit to your wallet lately. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay strong and stay informed.